For 3,000 years, priests burned this resin before speaking to God. They didn't know the chemistry. They didn't need to. They just knew that when the smoke rose, something inside the human mind opened. Modern neuroscience just figured out what they were doing. And what they found changes everything we thought we knew about a tree, a flame, and the human brain. Let me ask you something honest. When was the last time your mind felt quiet? Not distracted, not numbed, not scrolling into oblivion at midnight because your thoughts were too loud to sleep, but genuinely, deeply still? Most of us can't remember. We live in a world that never stops talking at us. Algorithms feed us anxiety dressed as information. Our stress hormones fire so often that our bodies have forgotten what calm even feels like. We medicate. We meditate sometimes. We try apps, supplements, routines. And still, there's this hum. This low, constant static behind everything we do. We feel disconnected from ourselves, from something we can't quite name. But what if I told you that an ancient tree, one that bleeds golden tears from its own wounds, hold a molecular key that crosses directly into your brain and gently, chemically changes the way you feel, think, and perceive reality? This is the story of frankincense, and it is far stranger, far more beautiful, and far more scientifically profound than you've ever been told. In some of the harshest places on Earth, where the soil is mostly rock, where rain is a rumor, where temperatures can crack stone, there grows a tree that should not exist. The Boswellia sacra, the frankincense tree. It doesn't look like much. Its trunk is twisted. Its bark peels like old paper. Its roots grip bare limestone like fingers clutching the edge of cliff. But this tree, this quiet, stubborn, forgotten tree, has shaped more human history than most empires. When its bark is cut, deliberately wounded, the tree does something remarkable. It bleeds, not red, not sap the way you know it. It weeps thick, milky tears that harden in the desert air into golden, translucent droplets. Resin, aromatic, luminous. Ancient people called them the tears of the gods. And here is the first layer of metaphor that this tree offers us before we even get to the science. The most valuable thing the frankincense tree produces comes from its wounds, not from its flowers, not from its fruit, from the place where it was cut open. Remember that. We'll come back to it. Now, human beings have been burning frankincense for at least 5,000 years, possibly longer. The Egyptians burned it at dawn in their temples, every single morning, as an offering to Ra. They called it the sweat of the gods fallen to earth. They packed it into the body cavities of mummies. They traded it by the ton. At certain points in history, frankincense was worth more than gold. Literally, by weight. The Babylonians burned it during prayer. The Romans burned it at state ceremonies. The Hebrew Bible mentions it over 50 times. In the book of Exodus, God gives Moses a specific recipe for sacred incense, and frankincense is a primary ingredient. It was so holy that using that recipe for personal purposes was punishable by exile. And then, of course, the story most of the world knows. 3 wise men, a newborn king, 3 gifts, gold, myrrh, and frankincense. Not spices, not silk, not jewels. Frankincense, given as a gift fit for divinity. But here's the thing no one talks about. In virtually every ancient tradition that burned frankincense, Egyptian, Judaic, Christian, Hindu, Zoroastrian, Buddhist, the priests didn't just burn it as a symbol. They didn't just burn it because it smelled nice. They burned it because of what it did to the people in the room. The ancient texts describe it again and again. A sense of calm descending, a shift in awareness, heightened focus during prayer, a feeling of the mind, lifting, expanding, becoming porous to something larger than itself. The priests noticed that when the smoke filled the temple, the congregation became still, receptive, altered. They called it the presence of God. But what if it was also the presence of a molecule? In 2008, a team of researchers from Johns Hopkins University and the Hebrew University of Jerusalem published a paper that sent ripples through both the scientific and religious worlds. They had isolated a compound from frankincense resin called incensole acetate. And they had discovered something that no one expected. Incensole acetate crosses the blood-brain barrier. Now, let's pause here because that sentence is more extraordinary than it sounds. The blood-brain barrier is one of the most selective, most fiercely guarded borders in your entire body. It's a network of tightly packed cells lining the blood vessels of your brain, and its job is simple: keep things out. Most molecules, most drugs, most chemicals, most of what circulates in your blood cannot pass through it. Your brain is a fortress. Very few substances get the keys. Incensole acetate gets the keys. Once inside the brain, the researchers found that it activates a specific ion channel called TRPV3, a protein found in neurons throughout the brain, particularly in areas associated with emotion, warmth perception. And this is the part that made the scientists pause anxiety regulation. When TRPV3 was activated by incensole acetate in mice, the effects were measurable and profound. Anxiety levels dropped significantly. Depressive behavior reduced. And here's the line from the paper that changed everything. The compound produced, quote, psychoactive effects, a sense of warmth, calm, and what the researchers could only describe as an altered state of consciousness. Not hallucination, not sedation, not intoxication, something subtler, something the English language doesn't have a clean word for. A feeling of openness, expansion, the dissolving of mental walls. The ancient priests who filled their temples with frankincense, smoke weren't performing empty ritual. They were, without knowing the biochemistry, delivering a psychoactive compound directly into the lungs, across the alveolar membrane, into the bloodstream, past the blood-brain barrier, and onto specific neural receptors that alter emotional processing and conscious awareness. They were, in the most literal neurochemical sense, opening doors inside the mind. And they've been doing it for 5,000 years before a single scientist picked up a brain scanner. Now, I want to be very careful here. This is not a video telling you to throw away your medication and burn tree resin. That would be irresponsible, and that's not what this channel is about. But I do want you to sit with an uncomfortable question. How much have we forgotten? We live in a civilization that has mapped the human genome, landed robots on Mars, and connected 8 billion minds through invisible signals in the air. And yet, we are by virtually every metric more anxious, more depressed, more medicated, more disconnected, and more mentally unwell than any generation in recorded history. We have more knowledge than our ancestors could have dreamed of. But somewhere along the way, we lost something they had. They lived inside nature, not beside it, not looking at photographs of it. Inside it, they breathed the forest. They touched the soil. They burned the resin of trees and sat together in silence and let the smoke carry their thoughts into shapes they couldn't have found alone. And what modern science keeps discovering again and again and again is that these weren't primitive habits. They were profound, biologically sophisticated interactions between the human nervous system and the molecular intelligence of the plant world. Phytoncides from pine trees boost natural killer cells in your immune system. We've measured it. The scent of lavender modulates GABA receptors, the same target as anti-anxiety medication. Forest bathing, Shinrin-yoku, reduces cortisol, lowers blood pressure, and increases heart rate variability within 20 minutes. And now, frankincense resin, burned in a temple ceremony, crosses into the brain and activates channels that regulate fear and sadness. Nature isn't just beautiful. Nature is pharmacological. The plants around us are not decorations. They are chemical communicators, and our bodies, our brains, still have the receptors to listen. We just stopped listening. And here's where the frankincense tree offers us its second metaphor, its deepest one. Remember what I told you earlier. The frankincense tree only produces its resin when it is wounded. The cut in the bark, the harvesters call it tapping, triggers a defense response. The tree bleeds this resin to seal the wound, to protect itself, to survive. And that resin, born from damage, born from pain, becomes the most precious substance the tree will ever create. The substance that heals, that calms, that opens the mind, that for 5,000 years was considered sacred enough to offer to God. If that isn't a metaphor for the human experience, I don't know what is. We all carry wounds. Cuts that life made in us that we didn't ask for. Losses, failures, betrayals, seasons of pain that felt like they would never end. And we spend so much energy trying to hide those wounds, to pretend they're not there, to cover the scars. But the frankincense tree doesn't hide its wound. It responds to it. It produces something from the place of damage, something golden, something aromatic, something that rises, and that substance becomes the very thing that brings peace to others. Your pain is not pointless. Your hard seasons are not wasted. The deepest wisdom you will ever carry, the most genuine compassion you will ever offer another human being, the truest calm you will ever know, it will not come from your victories. It will come from the places where you were cut open and chose to heal anyway. 5,000 years ago, a priest in a stone temple placed a golden tear of resin onto a burning coal. Smoke rose. The room changed. The people in it changed. He didn't know about TRPV3 ion channels. He didn't know about the blood-brain barrier. He didn't know about incensole acetate or psychoactive modulation or anxiety receptor pathways. He knew something simpler. He knew something truer. He knew that when humans sit still in the presence of what the earth offers, something in us remembers what we are. Not algorithms, not productivity metrics, not profiles and notifications and endless noise. Something older, something quieter, something that, even now, even after everything, is still waiting for you. In the smoke, in the silence, in the golden wound of a tree that learned, long before we did, that the most sacred things in this world are born from the places that hurt the most. If this story stayed with you, if something in it felt true, I'd be grateful if you subscribed to this channel. The Plant Mind is a place where we slow down, where we listen to what the natural world has been quietly trying to tell us about our minds, our pain, our healing, and our connection to something much larger than ourselves. Leave a thought in the comments. Tell me, what wound of yours became something golden? I'll be here. The trees will be here. And the next story is already growing.